The views and opinions expressed by the guest author or speaker during this live session are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of Reader's Magnet. The content shared is for informational purposes only and does not constitute endorsement or promotion of any particular belief, ideology, or product.
Hello, authors, book lovers, and storytellers. Welcome to another awesome day here at RM Hive, and you're tuning in to Reader's Magnet featured author interview. This is your host, Revan, and today's guest brings together two worlds that don't often meet: rocket science and storytelling. Our featured author is a Florida based writer whose career began not only with novels but with the U.S. space program. For decades, he worked behind the scenes on some of humanity's most ambitious achievements, contributing as an engineer, supervisor, and a manager on projects ranging from Atlas and Titan to Apollo and the Space Shuttle. His work helped shape the era that put humans on the moon and kept them flying beyond Earth. And after a long career solving complex technical problems, he took on a new challenge: learning how to tell stories. So he trained formally in fiction writing, embraced the craft, and began writing novels in the mid 2000s, bringing the discipline of an engineer and the imagination of a lifelong learner to the page. So please welcome our guest today, author, former aerospace engineer, and the storyteller, David Witherington Stewart. Hi, David. Thank you for joining us here today.
Yeah, I'm
How are
glad to
you?
be here. Glad to be here. Glad to be here. I'm doing good. I'm doing good.
Yeah,
I
I'm
had
actually pretty excited that you are with me here because I'm actually a fan. I have read your book, Angel of Mortality, and I love that as well. And first of all, David, you are one of our featured authors at the upcoming the Festival of Storytellers Chapter 7. So, are you excited for your sessions with us?
oh yeah. Oh definitely. Definitely.
All right. So today, we are actually going to feature your book, Serious Consequences. So, what is your writing process like?
Well, basically my novels are character driven.
Mm-hmm.
So and about 50 fictitious characters live in my house with me all the time. And I
Mm-hmm.
keep up with them all. And every once in a while, something happens that I pick out a story from what one of the characters basically where they're at that point in time.
Mm-hmm.
And in Serious Consequences, for example, Aggie Upton was left in a coma at the end of
Mm-hmm.
Within the Wind, the novel I wrote
Mm-hmm.
before Serious Consequences. And I wondered, well, what happens when she wakes up from the coma and finds out that her husband is in federal prison, her house has been destroyed, her son
Mm-hmm.
is with a sister-in-law she doesn't like, her her money assets have all been frozen by the federal government, and
Mm-hmm.
this gang member comes in and threatens her life.
Mm-hmm.
So it starts out with basically she's in a lot of trouble from the very first page. And what we do is we follow her how she gets out of trouble, the things that happen.
Mm-hmm.
And of course a lot of good things happen. Her husband happened to leave her the key to a security box in a bank, and it has in it a couple of thumb drives that
Mm-hmm.
have all of the operational information about an international criminal syndicate. But of course, that's what they threaten her life with, that if she turns that
Mm-hmm.
over to the FBI, they threaten to kill her, her husband, and her son. But she ignores that and turns it over to the FBI. Well, the FBI recognizes what they have, and they bring in an
Mm-hmm.
international interpreter who's able to take all this data and figure out what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So she goes to The Hague and testifies against a number of international criminals and is able to get them convicted. So that's basically how the book progresses. But
Mm-hmm.
Aggie faces a lot of problems with a friend that she takes with her in the process of being in witness protection. And how do you live an ordinary life, a decent life with your son, if you're in witness protection? And that's really where the challenge in the book is about.
Mm-hmm. So, for all our viewers out there, so I just want to reiterate what David said. So he actually had 50 characters in different books, and he's created a universe in between his books, and that's what I really love about his books. Because when I get to skim this other book, a familiar name actually comes up, and you're like, oh, I remember this character from this other book as well. So that's actually really good. So, by the way, how do you come up with the ideas or stories for the characters?
Well, a part of it is once I identify the character and their circumstance, I create what's called a premise.
Mm-hmm.
And the premise is basically who, what, when, where, how, and why uh,
Mm-hmm.
in there and what's going to happen next in the book. And then after you have the premise, then you have to sit down and basically figure out, well, how are you really going to write this book?
Mm-hmm.
And that includes what kind of book is it, which means how long is it going to be and what kind of audience is it going to appeal to.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and that determines how many sections it's going to have. For example, in Serious Consequences, I think there are 85 scenes, which is about the
Mm-hmm.
length for that kind of a book. And then you lay out the scenes, and then what you have to do is lay out, well, who are the point of view characters?
Mm-hmm.
One of the big mistakes I made in my early writing was I had too many characters. But
Oh.
if you have three point of view characters, a book works out pretty well. And in the case of uh, Serious Consequences, for example, obviously Aggie is a point of view character, but her
Mm-hmm.
friend Jennifer is also a point of view character because she's very involved. And there's another point of view character called uh, Pursley, and he's in
Mm-hmm.
there because his basically they're accusing Aggie's husband of having kidnapped and possibly killed Nicole Pursley, this other
Mm.
man's sister. Well, he didn't do it, but this is a very much involved. And the other point of view, I actually have four point of view characters. The other one
Mm-hmm.
is Rebecca Sinsheimer, who is Ladamian. That's Aggie's husband's name is Ladamian,
Mm-hmm.
who is Ladamian's lawyer, and she has a lot of experience in international law. So she's able to help Aggie when she goes to The Hague to testify. So it's between these four characters, everything that's going on, how to get Ladamian's sentence shortened, how to get these syndicate people involved and indicted, and how Aggie can basically live in witness protection and have a decent life with her son. So all of these things are going on simultaneously.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, her friend Jennifer is with her. And of course, Jennifer also has to go into witness protection. But there
Mm-hmm.
comes a point at which that basically they leave Jennifer in Kearney, Nebraska, and Aggie ends up in Indiana in the
Mm-hmm.
witness protection. So it's a very complex thing how they handle the witness protection and moving around
Yeah.
all the time.
And it's so interesting as well because uh there's like it's there's suspense in there because there are a lot of challenges that these characters are actually facing, and each one of them have their own hindrances or own challenge as well. So I'm so excited to know what's going to happen to them by the end of the book, and if I'm going to see these other characters as well on your other books as well. So I'm really excited about that, David.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's the end of the book is really where you always have to sum it up. And
Hmm.
for example, I came to the end of Cabrera Landing, and
Yeah.
Leon and his friend had been killed in the past,
Hmm.
17,000 years ago. But that, of course, wasn't the end of the story. And the end of the story is that they come back in the present and
Hmm.
meet one another and have this connection, but they don't really understand why. But of course, it goes to what happened to them 17,000 years ago and carries forward to the souls that they have in these people that they are in the present. And that's kind of a twist in the story that I really didn't think of until I got down to the end and said, how do we wrap
Hmm.
this thing up that it has meaning? And it's quite often, like at the end of Serious Consequences, Aggie gets this letter from Jennifer, and the marshal, of course, delivers it because, in being in witness protection, they're the
Hmm.
only people that know where she is. And she reads the letter and realizes she can't go back and make a connection to Jennifer. So she
Hmm.
tears the letter up and flushes it down the toilet. And the final phrase, the final sentence in the book is, and Aggie Upton flushed her life down the toilet.
Oh, intriguing. I want now I'm so excited to to finish reading it. I've actually started reading Serious Consequences, but I'm still in the first part. And
Mhm.
I am hmm I want to know more about Aggie right now. So thank you so much for that. And for all our viewers out there, once again, David Stewart here is one of our featured authors. And so story lovers out there, this is actually for you. So the Festival of Storytellers, the world's largest virtual book event, is back, and it's bigger and better than ever. So from January 19 to February 1, 2026, inspiring authors from around the globe will come together for an unforgettable online celebration of stories and the people who tell them. So it's a unique chance for writers and readers to connect, discover new voices, and fall in love with storytelling all over again. So best of all, it's completely virtual, so you can tune in from anywhere, literally anywhere. So you could be on your couch, your desk, or wherever your next great story finds you. So whether you're a writer, an avid reader, or simply someone who loves a powerful story, just like me, you are actually welcome. So head on to the festivalofstorytellers.com and sign up today and be part of a global celebration of stories. Now, going back to our featured author now, so David, what are some of the most important lessons you've learned about writing?
Oh gosh, there are so many, but one thing is that you have to write for the reader, not for yourself and not for
Mhm,
anybody else but the reader. And you have to get them into the story. I basically divide my stories up into into three parts.
mhm,
The beginning and the middle and the end.
mhm,
You figure that, right? But in that first 20 pages or so, by the time the reader finishes that, they should feel like they're living in the time and place that that main character is living in. And
mhm,
they should no longer be thinking of this is happening to somebody else, but this is happening to me, either
mhm,
personally or as an observer. And one of the things that I've taken to doing since I wrote Angel of Mortality is I'm writing in first person present tense,
mhm,
because that way it's basically you're saying I did this, I I am doing this, I am here. It's just puts it right on you to be the person who is acting, the person who is there.
true.
And I found it's a very effective way of writing, and I really enjoy it. And I'm writing Bethesda in the same way. It doesn't mean you can't write third person past and do the same thing, but I just
Mhm,
found that first person present really makes you think that way. You're thinking in the present
true.
tense for the character. Uh, that's one thing I learned. Another thing I learned is that uh, you have to be very precise about everything. You
Mhm,
have to be very precise about how you space your your sentences, how you space your paragraphs, how you space your scenes and your chapters and the whole thing. Because basically, if you go too long, the reader's going to lose interest. If you're too
mhm,
short, they're going to say, "Well, you didn't really tell me what's going on." So that spacing and pacing is very, very important. And pacing kind of comes down to a thing called beats. And
mhm,
beats are basically how you divide your novel up into what's happening, what's really happening. And you have to have a beat for each scene. And that beat has to be very, very precise and very something that the reader will feel like, I know what this is. That this is
mhm,
a chase scene, or this is an emotional scene, or this is a love scene, or whatever it is. They they understand what's going on and what they're doing. Because if you leave that in doubt, they're going to kind of fuzz off.
mhm,
I'm not interested in it anymore. So you cannot ever lose the reader's interest. And a part
true.
of that is that you have to open every sentence with something that basically is a grabber. You cannot just think I can go through this period and kind of just let it float, because it won't. The reader expects to be told and to be excited by every sentence, every paragraph, every scene, every chapter. And if you don't excite the reader, they're not going to stay with it. And
True.
you have to really think about that. Does it excite you as a writer? So that's one thing I definitely learned is if it doesn't excite you as a writer, it's probably wrong.
True.
Another and another thing that I've learned is you have to develop your characters along some kind of an arc, and you
Hmm.
have to define that arc ahead of the time. And if the character isn't growing, developing, coming around to something different all through the novel, uh, it's kind of what's the use? Why am I interested in this character if they're not changing, if they're not responding to what's going on in the plot? So those are the kind of things that I've learned about writing that I think very essential.
True. And I can attest to that because I have, for all our viewers out there, I can actually attest to what David just said because I just read his book Angel of Mortality, and really it excites me a lot. I cannot put it down. It's a really good story, really good storytelling. The scenes there are really exciting. So right now I'm actually very excited for Serious Consequences as well, because the story itself, I read the synopsis. I'm not yet done reading. I'm still at the first part. It already excites me. It's what's gonna happen because it's intriguing. You're gonna be like, what is going to happen with this character? So like that, and you also, because as what David said, he actually has this um elements of the first person present tense. As a reader, you actually get to feel that you are there. So it's really powerful. So I'm being pulled into the story. It's like I'm there as well. So David, what do you think makes a good story as an author?
Well, the people that I like to read, I love Kate Morton. I think she writes wonderful stories
Hmm.
because one of the things that she does that's exciting is she brings you into the character at different points in their lives,
Hmm.
and trying to balance those two things. You're always fascinated by what's going to happen here, but how does it relate to what happened then? And for example, in The Secret Keeper, you always wonder what happened back here in the past that caused this to happen in the present. And that's a fascinating tool for writing a novel, and she does it so wonderfully. And another one that I like is James Lee Burke because James Lee Burke uses
Hmm.
a lot of dialect and action and really does very very well at getting you into the character's world. And
Hmm.
I think even going back to Dickens and Jane Austen and all these great authors,
Yes.
it really brings you. They really know how to bring you into their world, and that to me is what makes a good story. Is when the author can bring you into their world. You know, look at Moby Dick. It's a long, long novel, and it has portions that kind of tell you more about whales than you ever cared to know.
Yes.
But it really does bring you into the story right from the first line.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think that's what makes a good story is that it brings you, the reader, into the story. That
Yes.
you
I'm
that
learning
you
so much
feel
from
that.
this interview. Yes. So, 2026, we've just actually entered 2026 right now. So there could be a lot of things that's going to happen in this year. So, David, what do you think will be the biggest challenge facing authors in 2026 and beyond?
The platform. I mean, we've had ebooks and audio books, and those we kind of we're familiar with now. But one of the things I've been looking at more and more is fiction. I think with the short attention span that a lot of people have developed because of social media and TikTok, things like that,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people like to pick up something to read that will excite them, tell them a good story, but make it 1 or 2 pages long, less than 1,000 words. And yet you
Mm-hmm.
still have to have a good beginning, a good middle, and a good end. And writing a good flash fiction, I'm not talking about a lot of it is not very good, but a lot of it, some of it is excellent. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's going to be something that there will be more and more of. that people will want something that's almost like the old Sherlock Holmes stories, where that basically you pick up the magazine and you read the story and it's a complete story, but when you put them all together, it also forms a complete story. So I think there's a big place in the future for flash fiction or other platforms, other medias, other ways of doing things that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't require somebody to sit down and read a novel from beginning to end, and doesn't necessarily require seeing a movie or listening to an audio book or anything like that, but basically can be done in a very short time. And a lot of it may be combined with video.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it will be graphic novels, because graphic novels, you can tell a lot of story in a very short
Mm-hmm.
space. My son loves graphic novels. So
Me
I think
too.
I think there's a lot of future for things that basically grab the reader, tell the story, but don't require the involvement of several days of reading or paying a lot of money to go to a movie or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So right now, I am happy that I am learning so much from you. So, Master David Stewart. So right now, David, I'm going to give the spotlight to you. I want you to this is spotlight. You can tell about your book, where we can find them, or if you have future projects. The stage is yours.
Well, you can find my books at davidstewartbooks.com. It's a very easy it's a very easy website to remember, and it's a good website when you get on it. Reader's Magnet helped me develop it, and you can find all my books there, including ones that Reader's Magnet didn't publish. And that's the best way to do it. Anything else you try and look up, you're going to find there's 1,000 David Stewarts around, and there's even a couple of hundred David W. Stewarts, and they've done all kinds of things, and you're going to have trouble separating. But if you go to davidstewartbooks.com, that's those are my books, and
Nice.
the ones I'm kind of proud of. The first book I wrote was Psychic Redemption, which uh,
Hmm.
which Reader's Magnet did.
Yes, with Bonnie
Publish one.
McConnell. Love that character.
Yes, right. But more than Bonnie, the character in there that I really had to develop was Julie Gustafson, because
Yeah, Julie as
Julie
well.
is the spirit of a 16-year-old girl whose baby was taken from her for the black market, and
Mm-hmm.
they killed her immediately, and she never got to hold or see her own baby. And she comes back from the dead to find the child that she never saw, but that she knew she had.
Mm-hmm.
And that is I think that's a fascinating motif.
Mm-hmm.
But the character of Julie Gustafson is actually based a little bit on my daughter. Uh,
Mm.
my daughter lived the kind of life that Julie kind of lived, and she was murdered at 19, so she was older when she was killed. But
Mm.
Julie was killed at 16, and I think that's kind of a fascinating thing. And it's a paranormal novel. It's not a science fiction or a thriller. It's paranormal,
Um,
and it's a different approach to the paranormal scheme maybe than most people would think of,
mhm,
because quite a few of my friends were pagan, and they have a different view of the paranormal world maybe
mhm.
than people who are Christian or Muslim or something like that. The other book that I'm pretty proud of, the one you're talking about, Angel of
Yeah,
Mortality.
love that.
Yeah,
Angel of Mortality.
and I really based that upon my own knowledge of science. I took my degree in physics,
Mhm.
and I still keep up with what's going on in physics. Matter of fact, I really wanted to go into biophysics, and biophysics combines physics, chemistry, biology, and mathematics, all four of those. So I keep up with all four of those fields. And I think what's going on right now in nanotechnology and robotics and artificial intelligence and neural networks, all those various things, is fascinating. But the thing is, the people that work on them more or less specialize in one thing only. And when I was the engineer for Rockwell and the shuttle, I was one of those engineers that basically put together all the different systems because I was the supervisor for the flight software. So I knew the propulsion system, I knew the electrical, I knew the ECLSS, I knew all the various systems,
Mhm.
and not all the engineers were like that. And I think what we need to do for the future in science is more or less take a more multidisciplinary approach where we basically put nanotechnology, robotics, artificial intelligence, neural networks, quantum computing, all these various things, put them together and create something that basically uses all these disciplines in more inventive ways. Because, of course, Eve, the uh, the robotic organism in Angel of Mortality, is a composite of all these various disciplines and can do wonderful things,
True.
and wonderful things that one of them alone could not do. Because when you take nanotechnology, for example, and put it with robotics, you can spread it over the whole Earth. You can have a robot that basically is the size of Russia. I mean, God,
True.
Russia's a big country. So uh, there's a lot of possibilities, and I think those need to be investigated. And I don't think anybody is doing that. And I believe that just like with the shuttle, when we put all these disciplines together, you can do some wonderful things by doing that.
Yes.
My other books that I'm really proud of course, Within the Wind, uh, that's about a Category 5 hurricane that
Hmm. Yes,
uh,
that one.
hits Florida. And I have a lot of experience with hurricanes. I've lived in Florida for 84 years.
Hmm.
So I've seen a lot of hurricanes, and I know what a Category 5 coming into the East Coast here would actually do, and not coming
Hmm.
down the coast, but coming directly in,
Hmm.
and basically washing over the barrier dunes and so on like that. It could do a lot of damage. So Bonnie McConnell gets stuck out in the middle of this hurricane with a sick woman with Aggie
Hmm.
up. And of course, there's a lot of challenges when the electricity's gone and a tree falls on the house, and you're basically almost underwater most of the places that you can be. A lot of challenges that face you if you try and have a medical emergency like that in the middle of a hurricane.
Hmm.
So she faces all of that. I think that's a pretty exciting book.
I'm now
My
excited because there's our names. What's what I said. The names are very familiar. Yeah.
And the other book I'm pretty excited about is Cabrera Landing. I did a lot of research at Cabrera Landing, what Florida was like uh, basically 19,000 years ago.
Uh-huh.
And at that time it was the ice age, and the water levels in the ocean were down 600 feet or so. The oceans were much farther down, and Florida was drier, and it was more isolated. It was entirely different, and we had mastodons and saber-toothed tigers and tire
Hmm.
wolves, all kinds of animals living in Florida that don't live here anymore. They couldn't live here anymore, but they did back then because it was colder, it was drier, it was different. And when Leon and his other five companions get thrown back into that world, they have to live a very primitive style. How do you deal with a mastodon? How do you deal with a dire wolf? How do you deal with a saber-toothed tiger? It's not like even being in the Amazon jungle, which I've done. It's really a challenge for all of them. And between them, they put their six different heads together and come up with a lot of very creative solutions. It's a very interesting book.
Yes.
And of course, the way it ends is I think something that I don't know how many people read it to the end, but you need to read to the end and see what happens.
Yeah. I'm excited about that. So-
And the other book that I wrote was not a fiction; it was nonfiction. Was my memoir, Seeking
Uh-huh.
Success. And Seeking Success really very, very much gives details about, particularly the Gemini program.
Mm-hmm.
Which I love the Gemini program. It was the best team we ever put together. We did it ahead of schedule and under cost, which is absolutely amazing for a space program. And it was one. I was an engineer there, but I'll tell you something. Engineers, the technicians worked for them, but you were a hands-on engineer. If you had to hold a wrench, you held a wrench. You know, it wasn't one of these things where all you did was paperwork and design and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So we developed very close comradeships in the Gemini program. I mean, in the Gemini program that we didn't necessarily develop in Mercury, Apollo, or Shuttle. Although Shuttle, it became more personal later on, as the program went on. But when we first started Shuttle, it was right after Apollo, as you know. We really started back in the early 1970s. Matter of fact, before that, I did a survey in 1969 of what facilities we could use for Shuttle, and as in the early part of the program, we were really we were spread very thin. Um, and at the Cape, we only had 30 engineers for Rockwell, so we each had a lot of ground to cover in what we were doing on design and development and so on like that for the launch. So it was, but later on when we got more people, when we started hiring people, it got to be a little bit different, and we did develop a lot of friendships, as the program went on, and of course now. Uh, those people communicate very closely because they got very close in the late part of the shuttle program. So I'm very excited about all my books. Go on davidstewartbooks.com and
Mm-hmm.
see what's there and pick out what you like. That's my advice.
Yes. All right, David Witherington Stewart, everybody, get your copy of Serious Consequences. It's actually available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, and also Readers Magnet bookstore. And most importantly, go to davidstewartbooks.com and go get his books. They're all there. So, David, it has been an awesome time with you. I've learned so much, and thank you for joining us here today at Readers
And
Magnet.
if they go to Angel of Mortality, they can get it on audiobook also.
Yes, Angel of Mortality, as what David said, it's already available in audiobook. Please get it. It's really awesome. I'm actually reading it right now, and I'm so hooked by it. So, guys, let us open the pages and unravel the secrets of your personal odyssey. And I believe that your ink never runs dry. So go tell your story, you storyteller. This is your host, Revan. And as we say it here at Readers Magnet, we share your story with the world. Bye for now. Stay awesome.
Thank you, Rob.